What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at Mrs. Doubtfire, directed by Chris Columbus, starring Robin Williams. I'm not going to make this review long. I'm going to make it short and sweet. I love Mrs. Doubtfire. This, without question, is my all-time favorite Robin Williams movie. I remember watching this movie when it first came out between the ages of 4 and 5. Loved it then, love it now. Mrs. Doubtfire to me is the quintessential Robin Williams movie. This is Robin Williams when he's firing on all cylinders. This was the movie that actually cemented Robin Williams as an influence for me when it comes to, comedic, when it comes to doing comedy and comedy-like things. His role of Daniel Hillard is fantastic, and his morph into Mrs. Doubtfire, the old English nanny, is amazing. It's like this. Every scene in this movie is just you can't take your eyes off it. That's how good Mrs. Doubtfire is. This is one of those movies that for the past 30 years, almost 30 years, gets better for me after every viewing. Does the movie have flaws? Yeah, I think it has some flaws here and there. But overall, this movie is too strong to. This movie is too strong that those flaws, even though they could be just like minor nitpicks, this movie is still way too perfect. From a casting standpoint, this movie's fantastic. Don't need to talk about Robin Williams. I just did. As Daniel Hillard slash Mrs. Doubtfire, he steals the show. I love Robin Williams in this movie. Him playing this father who clearly loves and adores his children, is going through a divorce with his wife. With his wife Miranda, played really underratedly by Sally Field, and as a ditch effort to continue to be active in his children's lives, he takes on the guise of an old English nanny by pretty much manipulating his wife that he's a woman, and that's where the comedy really ensues in this movie. And Robin Williams' portrayal as Mrs. Doubtfire is iconic. It's fantastic. Every scene that Robin Williams is in as Mrs. Doubtfire is a scene stealer. One of my favorite scenes is actually the scene where Daniel goes to his brother Frank, played by Harvey Fierstein, who is a makeup effects artist, and that whole montage where they're turning him into a woman is fantastic. It's hilarious. I love that scene. And it's followed by my other favorite scene, where he has to pretty much con a social worker into believing that Mrs. Doubtfire is actually his sister. And that whole part of the movie is just gold for me. I love that scene so much. Like, this movie is full of just so many iconic and memorable scenes. It has so many good performances. Sally Field as Miranda Hillard, I thought she gives a very underrated performance. Like, she makes Miranda somebody that we can sympathize with, but she doesn't come across as a villain. And I appreciate that, because in this movie, you're going to take the side of Daniel, and this movie's going to villainize the Miranda character. But we're given insight into Miranda as to how she feels about Daniel. She cares about Daniel a lot, but they're just not compatible with one another. And even though they both of them do care about one another, in terms of being a married couple, they're just not compatible, and they can't fake being together for their children, because it just creates too much hostility between them. And I thought Sally Field, portrayed those emotions really, really well. She's a very good actress. In addition to that, you have Pierce Brosnan, who plays this character named Stuart, who was an old flame of Miranda, and they start to rekindle their relationship throughout the course of this movie. And this, of course, gets Daniel to be very tinged a little bit, because he thinks that he doesn't want to see another man move in on his family. And this leads to the fantastic scene at Bridges' restaurant where Stuart nearly dies by choking on hot jambalaya until Daniel saves his life. And that whole Bridges' restaurant scene, another great scene where Robin Williams has to go between playing Daniel Hillard while talking to his boss, who is in charge of like this radio show named Lundy, played by Robert Prosky, and then he has to switch between Mrs. Doubtfire doing a birthday party. It's a great scene. It's hilarious. And seeing Robin Williams play two different characters and interacting with two different sets of characters, brilliance. Absolutely brilliance. The chemistry that Robin Williams has with the three kids in this movie, I thought the chemistry comes across really, really well, and I buy them as being a loving family. I also like the chemistry that develops with the kids when Robin Williams is acting as Mrs. Doubtfire. Of course, the kids are going to be very, very distant, but as the movie progresses, they start to care and love Mrs. Doubtfire and welcome her almost as if she was their grandmother. though in actuality, it's actually their father. It's great stuff. It's brilliant stuff, and I thought it was really well done, really well handled. Chris Columbus, he knows how to direct comedy. This is the guy who did the first two Home Alone movies, so he's got validation to his work in terms of comedy. Uh, if I have anything negative to say about this movie, is that I think this movie spells its message at the end when it really didn't need to. This movie did not really need to spell the message at the end because it's clear as day what the message of this movie is, and spelling it at the end with Mrs. Doubtfire, I thought was completely unnecessary, and you really didn't need it. Particularly since the entire movie conveys that message pretty perfectly from the word go all the way to the end. I mean, it's a touching monologue, but not necessary and very unneeded, especially since especially since Miranda and Daniel, they do make amends, and Miranda does convince the course that, hey, listen, let him see his children. He cares deeply about these kids. Don't ruin it for him. So I like that. Miranda gets her validation. Daniel gets what he wants. Yes, they're divorced, but in the end, he gets what he really wants, which is to be an active part in his children's lives. And you can't get a much better ending than that. Of course, before that ending, you have a really intense scene between Daniel and Miranda where they really air out a lot of their dirty laundry, and it's a very powerful scene. Well, this movie is really good at balancing its comedy and drama, and one does not bleed into the other. And it's perfectly balanced. Like, one never undercuts the other, and that's the brilliance of Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot more to talk about with Mrs. Doubtfire. Those are just my overall thoughts. At the end of the day, I love Mrs. Doubtfire. I think this movie is excellent. It gets a 9 out of 10 for me. By far, this is my all-time favorite Robin Williams movies, and it will continue to be my all-time favorite Robin Williams movies. The scene where he does the different voices when talking to the social worker is the scene that inspired me to want to do voiceover and voice acting. I'm not good at it, but you got to have an influence and you got to have something to inspire you, and that's what this movie did. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Mrs. Doubtfire. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like this video and subscribe, and let me know what your favorite Robin Williams movie is. Anyway, I'm AJ Legend, and I'll check you back next time for more.